Okay, so, so what are my goals here? I've got a menu and a logo. I've got a content area and I've got a sidebar. Now again, we cannot possibly replicate that pixel for pixel. Yes, we can. I don't want to make anybody cry. So we're not going to worry about it so much. But I have the basic idea of each widget should be in a box, and I've got a header style and a compare. I can adapt. Again, I'm not going to change. I'm going to adapt. So I've started off with my demo theme here. I just need to put this code here before I forget for the umpteenth time. Best. Hey, I told you. Copy, paste, save. Okay. So I'm going to duplicate my theme here. Duplicate. And I'm going to call it Scallywags theme. Why not? I need to alter my, so Scallywags WordPress. And I'm actually going to go ahead and delete all the other CSS. I don't need it. It's the other, that's from the skeleton theme. I'm going to start from nothing. And there's some other things that I won't need. Remember, we only want to start with index.php. We want to make a mother template. So I'm going to get rid of archive.php, full width, page, and single. Those are all child templates. So they're gone, out the door. I'm left with header.php, footer.php. I've still got my functions.php, and you can see there's some code in there. My screenshot here, I'll actually just quickly, if you want to just quick little replacement here. I usually do this right at the beginning of the project, which is actually what I'm doing right now. So this is technically the beginning of the project that you're witnessing. And I do it because I haven't loaded the WordPress theme yet. And when I go to, I want to see a pretty little screenshot because I'm like that. So I'm going to paste it in here and just start the project off with a nice little screenshot. So, okay, it's not going to fit the whole thing. Fine, be that way. Flatten it, save it. There we go. So inside my Scallywags theme, I'm starting from more or less scratch. I've got the mother template, which I've got to adapt. I've done screenshot.png, and I've got style.css. Those three files right there, those are the bare minimum. Now, in addition to that, you can see we're using header and footer.php and sidebar. Those are the includes. Get header, get footer, get sidebar. Guess what those get? Those three files. They don't get header 1. They don't get header blah. They get header.php. And we're going to leave the comments template because, again, it's not hurting anybody. So, this is on the right-hand side. That's my destination, right? We've been talking about that, navigating that valley, right? So, if this is my source, so I've got static HTML, CSS, and over here I have dynamic WordPress. Okay, it's this guy, this valley here. So we're here. Okay? So, on the left side is my original static HTML, and on the right side of my window is my dynamic WordPress theme. So now we've got to merge them. We've got to make a hybrid of both. So, what should be the first thing I do besides picking up my red marker?
Bring everything over to your index.php.
Yes. 1. Bring, I shouldn't say bring, I should say the technical term, right? Copy. CSS, images, JavaScript. Okay? Move on over. So I'll grab my images and I'll grab my CSS and I'll just move them on over. There's my CSS here. with my font file, and there's my images there. They're now part of the dynamic experience. What's the second step I should focus on?
The HTML.
Yep.
Do you copy that HTML in at the bottom or at the top of the next page? Yeah.
I'll show you in a sec. And then the last step really is add dynamic, add dynamic code.
And that's when you go line by line.
Yep. And then the fourth step is fine tuning. And the fifth step is profit. There you go. So that fourth step could be 10 minutes, it could be 10 years, but finish it. So I'm going to grab my original static HTML, copy all. Going to load up my dynamic index.php. Oh, wait, first I need to load MAMP. Okay, WordPress demo. There's my tater tots theme. So I'm going to log in because I like to work live. I'm one of those people, I make one little change, I save, I reload. I've always done it that way. I like to know that what I'm doing is making a difference. So there's my Scallywags WordPress theme that I just made. You can see there's no CSS being activated. And now I can activate the site here. So, original? Not quite. Okay, so let's get this underway.
Fully dynamic right now, right?
The
text and everything's fully dynamic.
Yeah, everything you see there, I mean, that's dynamic, that's dynamic, that's dynamic, this is dynamic, this is everything is coming from the database. But I haven't got my style, I haven't got my look and feel. So I just grab, this is the way I do it. I just grab the original everything and I paste it all in. Now I'm going to go in 3 steps because I've got header, index, and footer. So I'll do header, and then footer, and then index. So let's look at header. So if I look at the original header.php, there's all kinds of dynamic template tags going on. Eventually, though, it gets down to business, and there's div ID wrapper. So all of this stuff, I actually don't really want to touch too much of it. I just want to make sure that I'm loading these 2 style sheets. So I'm going to grab them and put them over here. Now this is wrong. I need to tell it additional information. I need to tell it, where is my theme folder? That CSS file, that CSS folder, that's in my theme folder. That is not the root directory of my website, like it says here. So I need to put a piece of code here. Don't forget the trailing slash. And instead of style sheet URL, I want template _ URL. I know that because I've typed it about 4 billion times. You might have to Google it. But what would you Google? Blog info. If you Google those 8 characters, you're going to get exactly the information you need. Now, right away, all I've done is I directed my WordPress theme to the CSS. I said, hey, WordPress theme, there's 2 CSS files you might be interested in loading. And there it is. So already, I know that my CSS is loading, and I know that both files are loading because my font is loading too. All right, let us continue. So let's look at the original here. So Scallywags, Pirate Grub, and Food Eatery, that's just a logo. And then there's a menu there. If I look at the original header.php, it's pretty much the same thing. Inside of header, I've got a couple of elements, and there's WP nav menu. So how should we replicate that? There is our original header from our static HTML. So I'm just going to bring that over, and I like to do it this way. I like to push everything down that I think I'm not going to need. I just push it out of the way and paste in my static code. That way I have both on the same file, and I can kind of work with it. So here's nav, and there's unordered list and li. Okay, what should I do there? Nav menu. So I'm going to grab the code that I pushed down, and I'm going to cut. Because what I cut, because it's like, I know I'm not going to need that at the bottom of that file anymore. Cut. And then I'm just going to replace my static, unchanging menu with the dynamic menu generator. Then I've got this guy here, which is a class logo and then images logo.png. Now there's two changes I want to make here. One, I want to make it link home. So, do I have that code on the screen anywhere? Yeah. So look, a href blah 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 echo home. Now I'm going to grab the whole tag, but I only really need what's in between the quotes. I just need this PHP tag here. So I'll just grab that. And then where it says a class equals logo, I'm going to add href, bada bing. So I'm just duplicating what was down below. And now I don't really need that guy anymore. So I could get rid of him. The last thing is that image going to load? No, because I'm not telling it the proper directory. So one more time, I'm going to grab the template URL CSS, image source equals, bada boom. And now this code here, I don't need it all. I've gotten everything I need out of him, and like every girl did with me in high school, once she used me, out I went. Off I went to find my own place in the world. Did that sound really pathetic or what? It's not that true. Okay. Hey, look at that.
So the words contact us, portfolio, but those specific words were not in the PHP.
Nope.
Because they're in this,
They're in the database. WP nav menu, his job, this guy's job here, is go into the database and retrieve a menu. Go get me a menu. And that's what he did. Now in this case it says sort column menu order menu class clear fix. I actually didn't put in the proper bit of dynamic thing I needed because I need the theme location piece. Right? Theme location primary menu, because I want to be able to specify this menu. There we go. So this just has an extra little bit of code in it to tell me primary menu. So which dynamic menu do you want, sir? So now if I reload this, if I go to menus, and I go to my menu, and I set that there, haha! And now I am in total control over what appears on that menu and in what order. So I can put it in the order I want like that, and reload, and there it is. So there's my original, and there is my current build. And now this guy links home, and these guys actually link to the different pages. I haven't really done anything though. So I made a huge blunder here. If I look at my original index.html, I forgot div ID wrapper. So I'm going to go and put that guy back in here. And now I need footer.php just to make sure that I close that div, because I need to make sure that it's closed. So close div, sausage fingers, come on, end wrapper. I like to do that for all my end div tags. I like to put a little comment to tell me what div, because 6 months from now, you are not going to have any idea what that code does. I guarantee you. You're going to be intimate with this stuff. You're going to be closer to this WordPress theme than your significant other. But 6 months from now, you are going to have not one clue what any of this code does. Don't worry about that. Totally normal. Totally normal. So I've got my footer.php. I really don't need to change anything at all. Because if I look at the bottom of my code here, I end my section. That's my main section. There's the footer tag, copyright, blah, 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 Scallywags Inc., blah, 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 end footer, and there's my end div. So just one more time to just double check. The main area, the index.php, will end up there. There's footer, copyright, and I've dynamically put in the year, so I don't have to go and update this in 2014. Then I put in the name of the blog, all rights are reserved, and then I end my wrapper. Save, reload, haha. Starting to look closer. Now, I have, unfortunately, my menu is too big, and it's pushing my, there we go. Better. I could fix that with HTML or CSS later on. I just want to do a quick. So here we are now, before, after. Before, static, boring, unchangeable. This, dynamic, hot, awesome. So we're ready to continue. I can put away footer.php, header.php, and focus on index.php now. So the mother template. Now the mother template already loads header and footer. But all this other crap in the middle, div id equals main, I don't know if I need that. So let's go and look at our original HTML. Div id wrapper, we've got that. Header, we've got all this. Section. And it goes all the way down to here. So you know what? I need all that. I'm going to grab all that. The contents are static right now, but the structure is what I need. So I'm going to copy the whole thing, and as before, right where I know I need to start my code, I'm going to hit return a bunch of times, and then I'm going to paste. That way, I have my static HTML structure on top, and any of the dynamic elements that I'm going to need are at the bottom. So, let's examine our HTML structure. We've replicated all this, great. And it goes right into content. So in div class equals main call, there's my content area. Boring, static, unchanging. What do we replace it with? But what specific piece of code? The loop? You can shout it out if you're right. There's the loop. Again, I'm going to cut because it's easier for me to remember that scrap code and work with it. If I cut what I do need, move it up here, paste it, and then I go back down here and it's like now I only have this much to work with. So it's a little easier to wade through. So, going through again, look, there's div class equals side call. Now I have div class equals hours box and okay. Again, I'm not going to be able to replicate it without grievous harm. So let's do the best we can. I'm going to just grab the sidebar, cut, and the whole thing. I have this for reference if I need it. So the whole sidebar, paste. And then the last thing is get footer. Well, we already know that we're doing that. So the rest of my scrap code here, I can get rid of it. If I was to go back and go through line by line, I could see, okay, div id wrapper, then there's header. I have my section area, and it's divided into a main column, which is my content area, and a side column, which is my sidebar, and then my footer. Okay. Header, section, there's my main call, there's my content, there's my side call, and there's my sidebar. Close my section, call my footer, and bada bing, bada bam, bada WordPress theme. So before, after. Not bad. So if I got this far in 17 minutes, that's like if you handed that in, you probably wouldn't fail. because you've replicated the HTML and CSS structure. You've replaced it with the dynamic menu there. You put the loop there, and you put a dynamic sidebar there. Right away, I wouldn't even think twice about giving this a 60 or a 70 at the end of the day. Looks good to me. Now I could get into it and start picking it apart and say, well, did we actually bother to make a link style for Scallywags? No, because in the original design, I didn't actually put a link anywhere, so you never made it. So I don't know if I want blue underlined default links. Maybe I want to take a little care with that. These guys here is what I want to address. So again, this is going to take me from a 70 to an 80. Just by, well, okay, again, theoretically. Remember the original had them in nice boxes, and it was actually an H3, right? If I look at the original, and I say inspect element, it's in a div called hours box. There's an H3 at the title. Okay, let's see if I can fake it till we make it. It is possible to tell this dynamic sidebar widget to spit out an H3. I just don't want to make anybody cry. So we're gonna worry about that next semester. But the big one is they're not in those nice brown boxes. So let's go and look at what's responsible for that. The code there that we're looking for is, this is tater tots. What am I doing? There we go. The code that's responsible for that is this guy. Right? There's the border. And I know this because I wrote this, so it was easy for me to find. But I've said div hours box, div map box, yada, 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 yada. Well, those two elements are gone. I have no way of, well, okay, I shouldn't say I have no way. Without great effort and hours and hours and hours of Googling and coding, and I'm saying for me, and you know how I'm always off with my estimates to you, so if it's going to take me a couple of hours, right? So an easy, quick solution is to say, well, I don't have control over these elements anymore, but I do have elements I can work with. Let's go and find one. Let's go and right-click and inspect element and try to find something that we can turn into a box. Each element, each widget, has an H2 outside of it. Interesting. And the whole thing is encased by an unordered list. This is actually not even my dynamic sidebar. It is not because I've got the wrong code. Good job, me. Yep, okay, hold on. Pause. I wish I could pause the recording. There we go. See this line here? If function exists, dynamic sidebar, and the user has specified a dynamic sidebar, go. So I forgot that code. So I'm actually just going to copy that whole thing and paste it. It's very different, or it's very similar. Jesus. There we go. That's better. That's a dynamic sidebar.
Where'd you paste that to?
Sidebar.php. So now when I inspect element, I'm going to get the result I want. There we go. The sidebar is a div. Okay? The unordered list actually holds every widget. I don't know why the dynamic widgets spit out like this. They just do. So each widget is in its own LI. Aha. That's the element I can target. Instead of div mapbox, div hours box, I can simply target sidebar ul li. So I'll go back and target it that way. So I'll go back to my CSS here, and I'm actually just going to keep that because it's not going to hurt anybody. There's no div named mapbox or hours box anywhere. So I can just keep it there, and I can say sidebar ul li. And reload, and now they're all in nice little boxes. Now, unfortunately, that cascades to the next level down. So there might be another level of ULLIs. There totally is. So now I kind of need to do a little bit extra little sidebar ULLI. Oh, force a habit. I worked for an agency, and the head of programming made us do it, and he was a real ass about it. So now I can't stop doing it. So ignore me. It's just you don't have to do it. His argument was you could tell the difference between an ID or a class name and a tag name. The tag name, like, that's the HTML tag. So I don't know. He was crazy. Anyway, I need to get rid of, so border none, padding none, margin. I'm just putting a little code there, and background none. So I'm kind of, here I'm setting a border, and I'm setting a background, I'm setting padding. But for these guys, for the children of those, I want to tell them, no, don't have any of that. There we go. Oh, and the other thing is these guys are H2s. I've already told the H2s to be that nice red style. I don't really want to change that. Now, I have an option here. Try to figure out a way to tell the dynamic sidebar widget to spit out an H3, or inspect this guy and see what I'm working with. H2 class widget title. Okay, sure. Where's that H3 that I styled? Where is it?
They're down.
Yeah, I saw it there, but I'm looking for just there it is. So there's H3. That's what I want the sidebar widget titles to look like. So rather than trying to make the HTML different, I'm just going to add more CSS. H2 widget title. There it is. Okay? So it's not perfect. It really isn't perfect. But what have I done? I have made the exact same website in terms of the HTML and CSS. A, B. Is it perfect? Is it exactly the same as it was before? No. But the content is different. And it's now a WordPress theme. So it's not just a static page. It's wonderful to say, oh, well, I'm just going to stick a map here with a seahorse. It's wonderful to say that. It's another thing to code it dynamically. I could have just, if I really wanted to, I could have just grabbed that code from the original index here. Where's that code? So there's HoursBox and MapBox again. Grab them. And I'm going to put them into sidebar PHP, and I'm going to put them in here. That guy. That guy? Yeah, that guy. Paste it right there. What I've just done there is I've just instructed it to say, if I have a dynamic sidebar, go ahead and do your dynamic sidebar awesomeness. If I don't specify a dynamic sidebar, could you paste this code, please? This is the else part. Is else. Do this. All right, let's see what that does. I'm going to reload. It's going to do absolutely nothing. But if I go back here and I get rid of all my widgets, I'm just going to remove them from the sidebar. Now that it's empty, WordPress kicks in and goes, uh-oh, I no longer have any dynamic widgets. You now fail that if statement. Remember that if statement? If function exists, dynamic sidebar and dynamic. You've now failed this. It says, nope, no dynamic sidebar present. What happens? Else? So I'm just going to hit reload, and please don't embarrass me. Yay! So it's totally possible to replicate exactly what you've got if you want it. You do not have to use the dynamic sidebar. I just think for the purposes of education, it would be better for you to do it. Because 9 times out of 10, you're going to want that dynamic sidebar. It's that 1 time out of 10 where you're like, you know what? There's an hours box and a map. That's it. That's all I ever want in that sidebar. There it is. Shut up. You know what I mean?
I noticed that you got an image there.
Broken thing.
It's broken, yeah.
But the other ones showed up, the moons.
Well, that's because This is coming from CSS.
Yeah.
This actually isn't an image. The way I did mine is I did the H2 and I did a little padding with a background image. That way I don't have another element here. I was just being, so that's why the images load there, because they're coming from the CSS. But you're right, the seahorse is coming from the HTML and the link is broken. See, there's no HTML element there because it's being CSS. So here I need one more template tag. So let's go find blog info one more time. Somewhere. Somewhere out there. Blog info template URL. Paste it. And there it is. Because I didn't delete that CSS, right? When I had div, mapbox, div. Even though it's different if it's dynamic or static, I was able to have both. So it is totally possible to do one or the other. I don't want you to feel like I must use the dynamic sidebar widget, because in this case, there's really no way to do this in a dynamic sidebar widget. You've got an iframe here, you've got different text, the damn seahorse, totally custom, totally impossible to replicate.
If in our midterm project, of course, the CSS file is default, here it should be, must be always style and sheet.
Well, no, I got away with it. Look at the way I've structured mine. I have general.css. Sorry, that's the wrong theme.
Okay, then.
So as long as you have in your root directory style.css, but look, that's all the code that I have in that file. WordPress needs that file for organizational purposes.
Okay, then inside the CSS folder
Yeah.
is your real
Yeah.
CSS.
You may, if you want, you could copy all of your CSS from here
I can,
and put it in
okay.
here.
It's the same.
But it was easier for me because you didn't have to. You noticed that the background images worked. I didn't have to update anything because the CSS file and the structure
It's replicated.
was exactly the same. So it's a little trick I use where style.css, all he is like a file card. This is the name. This is the meta info. Because these three files are required.
You go to the indexes, the link.
But once I get into header.php,
We are calling.
I went ahead and I called.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So your comments is still unstyled.
Yeah, I didn't really. So yeah, if I was to stop here and hand this in, I would get a good mark. I would. If I wanted to get a better mark, I could pay attention to this. This is kind of ugly. This doesn't really work. This is totally unstyled.
Wouldn't you take that one out in WordPress front end?
Yeah, you could. If you don't want comments, you don't have to have a comments template. Just like if you don't want a dynamic sidebar, you don't need one. But it's better for you to learn these dynamic things.
About the sidebars, what about every other page?
Well, yeah, every other page looks exactly the same. I haven't made any child templates.
You've got no widgets.
And I can't really, because I only designed one page. So I can't really, on the fly, I can't really decide what would be different or whatever. But this is all index.php. Every time I click here, I'm just loading another index.php. So that's a single post.
So the second you add a widget, though, it's gonna
Yeah, as soon as I add a single widget, so I'm just going to grab archives and drop and save. So now it's going to go from calling that static code to the dynamic code, and there it is. And now I can click here, and this is actually archive.php. But I haven't made any of those child templates yet. So that's what I mean by this would be an okay mark. You'd probably pass. But to get that great mark, I want to see more. I want to see archive.php, page.php, and single.php. Those are the big three. If you decide that you need a separate home page, and you don't, some people just customize index.php to look like their home page. Because at the end of the day, you're either looking at a page, a single post, or an archive feed. So index.php can be the odd man out. The better way to do it though is to make a fourth one called home.php. Make a custom template. That way you keep index.php as the mother template. You don't have to customize him to the nth degree. You can just make him look like the generic page that I've just made here.
Is there a way to show the two widgets as well as the sidebar?